Hello, everybody. Welcome to yet another episode of General Geekery in person, coming to you live, recorded from Niagara Falls. Did say we were going to do a bunch of episodes while we were together, so did not lie about that. Um, Joining us today is one of JD's good friends, Monty. Monty, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Absolutely. So JD was saying that he you saw our customizing challenge and that he was bouncing a lot of the ideas of our customizing challenge off of you.
Yeah, it was really fun to watch it unfold. I was just a sounding board. All the inspiration and ideas were his, but it was delightful to watch it unfold step by step.
He did give me a couple ideas. He every time I had an idea, I thought, is this only making sense in my own head? Then I'd ask him because he's got a Monty has a what's the word I'm looking for? Off the beaten path approach to his we all have our head canons, but yeah, Monty likes them.
Yeah, I was going to say if you're like using me as like your reference point to see if you're on track, probably the first time that the whole thing went sideways from the start.
Well, I just as somebody else who likes some esoteric stuff and whose whose mind is open to all kinds of other properties joining his then I'm like, yeah, he'll see where I'm coming from on this.
We are definitely of a feather in our approach to the sacred texts of a given franchise canon.
Yeah, he's got Hellboy in his universe.
Oh,
So,
nice. Yeah.
Yeah, Hellboy like crosses over into anything. That's what's beautiful about him.
Yeah. 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 It's definitely one of my favorite properties. I met Ron Perlman a couple years ago at a convention.
Nice.
Got him to autograph a couple of my custom figures. So one of them was
Cool.
Hellboy.
That's
So
awesome.
definitely a huge. I did see the David Harbour Hellboy, and it just wasn't the same without Ron Perlman.
I couldn't bring myself to. I admit I had arms crossed and just total bad attitude towards it anyway. But my friends were like, no, no, they said it's going to be more accurate to the comics, which to me, like accuracy to the source materials, the lowest bar to clear on an adaptation. Like, give me something new. I don't care. I have the comics. And then I saw the trailer, and it had I think Moni Moni or something like on the soundtrack, and I'm like, right, this really looks like it matches Mignola's vision. Sure.
Yeah.
So I skipped that one. I started the more recent one from like last year, Crooked Man or something. No, not Crooked Man. That's a villain from something else. I don't know, whatever the low budget one was that came out like about
I
six
don't.
months ago.
I don't know about
I
that.
remember seeing the trailers for it and just thinking to myself, what, you just didn't want to get Ron Perlman for this one either?
Yeah, well, I
I
think he has a loyalty to Del Toro. I don't think he wants to
He
do that
does.
here, Del Toro,
He
which I
does.
can
You've
respect.
mentioned that a couple.
That new one wasn't horrible. It just felt like if the movies had never existed and you saw it, you'd be like, "Hey, this would be a pretty cool little Hellboy TV show." And that was about. So I turned it off, but it wasn't like I threw it across the room so angry. It was just like, I don't need to finish this. I'm
I
definitely
didn't
a
see
Del
the
Toro Hellboy guy.
I didn't see the David Harbour version at the time that was released. I just thought, why the fuck are they rebooting it now? It's only been a few years since the Golden Army, and I really wanted to see a third part of that.
Yeah, I did
Me
too.
too. That's
Keep
my
it.
cinematic holy grail is Del Toro's Hellboy 3.
I would have loved to have seen it. Like even if it was a change of direction, even if it was lower budget or whatever, I wouldn't have cared. I would have liked to have seen what he did because I really like the way all of those characters came together and played off of each other. And that's got a lot to do with having a director that knows how to direct these people.
Yeah.
And knows how to do an adaptation. So he's not
Yeah.
slavishly faithful to the comics, but he's definitely loyal to the spirit of it. From what I understand, part of the rift was Mike Mignola wanted something more faithful to his comics. Because I remember reading a quote from him about the 2019 film, and he talked about like the wild hunt scene in the movie. And he's like, I finally got to see that on the big screen. And he's the creator. I'm happy for him, but to me, it was kind of a self-mark moment. I'm like, yeah, but the director of the first two is a lot more artistic and capable, but whatever, none of my business. It just disappoints me.
Yeah. No, I definitely feel you on that one for sure. And then JD said that you got into the Monster Force then too.
Yes, but that's a little misleading. My friend Jared got me to try it out, so I bought the Crimson Sleepwalker
Okay.
and immediately fell in love, just as Jared did. He also just dipped a wary toe, and he's like, "Oh my god, the quality on these is nuts." One thing I cited to JD about the quality. Actually, let me grab the figure if I can remember where I put him.
Absolutely.
Spoiler, I can't. I don't know where he is. With a good figure, you can pop the head off.
Yeah.
Here you can. Oh, here it is. He's in here for a shoot. And actually, off camera, I have to take the head off anyway because it had a weird helmet on it. So this is not the head that it comes with. This is
yeah. I've seen that.
like a Mythic Legion skull, and the
Yeah.
little skulls around it are like a necklace from some Japanese demon toy or whatever. But the thing that weirded me out the most is without any heat, you can just pry the neck right out. Like the tolerances on these things are just insane. So I'm all in, and yet months and months later, that's still the only figure I own. A lot of it, everything's on pre-order still. What was that?
Big Bad Toy Store doesn't have them. They're sold. Right. I think almost all of them are sold out.
They have a couple of them, but
now the tariff situation is complicating things. I'm sure you guys like me are kind of preparing to reevaluate your hobby priorities.
Yeah.
Depending on how it shakes out, my one certainty moving forward is I still want to give Big Bad Toy Store my business because they've been really good to me over the years. With anytime there was a quality control issue that wasn't their fault, they still insisted on doing right by me.
They have excellent.
They really do. They're like perfect. To the point that I get mad in like when they'll post something and like some smart aleck will like say something disparaging, like I actually get defensive. I'm like, this is like a retailer, like they're not part of my identity, but that's how much like I'm fond of them and I respect them.
Yeah,
so
no, I've been using
them, and I still want to support Monster Force. I just don't know what the timeline is going to look like.
Yeah, I saw something from Fresh Monkey Fiction saying that most of the stuff was ready to ship, but it's not shipping because China isn't shipping it because of the tariff situation. So
right, and I mean, who knows what the timeline's going to be on that? But yeah, based on my one figure, like I said, the tolerances are better than any figure probably I've ever owned. And so it's weird. That's the only official figure I have, but it's still dominated my hobby for the last few months because I'm taking my G.I. Joe classified figures and my Marvel Legends and whatever oddities I'm buying, and I'm sort of kit bashing them, or sometimes just mentally reinterpreting them through the lens of like a Monster Force notion. And I should note there, like I respect and admire the Monster Force canon, but for me, it's just monsters. It's sort of like the BPRD from Hellboy. Like to me, it's just kind of a riff on that, and that's not to downplay the cool story they're putting together, but it just kind of inspired me to like, okay, how can I take all these existing monster lore and monster hunter lores and kind of combine them through GI Joe, because GI Joe to me is a great sort of template property that you could take in so many directions. And so, my whole GI Joe direction or collection's kind of leaning in a Monster Force direction right now.
Yeah, I did a whole series of 4-inch customs over the last, I don't know, year. Maybe? Yeah. I got I don't know, 10, 11 or 12 of them done.
Nice.
And yeah, just like I used some of the stuff they had done was based off of like the Action Force villains. So from the British property, so I've used some of the stuff, and they've renamed it like Crimson Moon. So I did some, but I still took like I'm a huge fan of the monster stuff. So I took like Dracula in there. Renfield was the guy that he initially made contact with. So I had like Renfield's daughter being a sneak assassin for him and for Dracula. And
after we're done here, I'd like to see those if you wouldn't mind sharing. I'd love to see.
Absolutely. I'll show you. I'll send you a link to my Facebook page.
Nice. If I was more talented at customizing, because I'm mostly a lazy kit basher and fine with that, I'd love to do something like in the realm of like the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Yes.
Josh Izzo, I think it was, showed me some stuff he did many years ago. I think also in the 1/18 scale. And first off, he took it beyond what Alan Moore had initially done. So there's like dozens of different figures, and it's just this haunting little boutique collection he put together. And it's like, oh man, I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I love doing little sublines like that.
Absolutely.
I'm working on like some of the Dark Knight trilogy figures right now. So
also in 1/18th or in a different scale?
No, I do pretty much 1/18th scale.
You've got
to be doing some scratch building and stuff, like sculpting on your own, I would imagine, right?
I do a little bit of sculpting, but
he hates it. He'll text me and say, "Fuck, I hate sculpting."
Yeah.
I hate it even more. I don't even attempt it.
So anytime anytime I start sculpting, I'll text him and say, "Hey, have I ever told you how much I hate sculpting
I'm only
That's
asked
fair.
once or twice you've mentioned it.
this week?"
That's fair. So, at a 1/18th scale, how are you approaching just that ornate Christopher Nolan armor for Batman? Even
I haven't done Batman yet.
fair enough.
Done a lot of other characters. He
Well,
did,
that's more. Frankly, that what you're doing is more interesting. I mean,
yeah, you did.
Batman's the obvious one, but he's also the boring option.
So it's really surprising how many guys in ties are in those movies. So you've got Lucius Fox, you've got Bruce Wayne, you've
That's
got
true.
Scarecrow is mostly in a suit.
Jeez.
You've got the villain from the first one,
Ra's al Ghul
Ra's al Ghul is in a
and Two Face.
yeah, Two Faces in a suit, Joker's in a
Now that
suit.
you say that, it almost sounds like a parody, like Christopher Nolan's Batman, and everybody's wearing a tie.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
say that as a Nolan fan, but it's kind of funny.
so many guys in ties in that movie, in those three movies that I made a bunch of customs using the same blank. So and it
So
worked.
what are you using as a blank? I can't think of any 1/18 figures with ties right offhand.
Uh, Marauder Task Force, and then I will sculpt the ties.
Right. Okay. Nice. Nice.
Nice.
Marauder really launched in a big way with that 1/18 figures. They were doing gear already. They launched right as I was getting out of the 1/18th game, and I was watching that stuff coming out, thinking like, damn, if I'd held on like another year, this would have defined my hobby for at least 5 years.
I spend so much money on them for customs, for just blank figures for customs, that's not even funny.
I might have to get back into that scale someday. It's so easy to world build for. That's what I miss, and how little space and weight they take up is very refreshing too.
Well, no, I make card backs for all my customs.
Nice.
Yeah. So
Do you like print them on heavy stock, or how do you do it?
I do. So I've got a printer in town where I live, and they'll print it on 100-pound silk, or 100-pound silk paper, and then I'll glue them to cardboard, comic book backing boards.
Dude, that looks gorgeous. That's like really well done.
So
I love that. Nice.
yeah, I do all the art, all the graphic art in Photoshop,
Dang.
and then
That's
print them out, and then cut them out and glue them to comic book backing boards.
I love that.
Player.
Sure.
How much of the fun for you is that piece, like the packaging part?
It's so like I have different phases. So I've got like a phase of like pre-planning, like, okay, this is what I want to make. What parts do I need? And then the next phase is building it. The next phase is painting it. Painting it's my favorite part.
Oh, nice.
And then I take a picture of it because I do photography on the side. And then I'll do the card, print the card, put the figure on the card, then the card goes on the wall.
Nice.
So that's my customizing process.
That's cool. I like how involved it is. Are there any that like you're really vibing on the figure you put together? Be like, for this one, I'm not going to do the packaging thing. I'm not going to do a bio.
Yeah, because I make my own box sets too.
Damn, that's ambitious.
Yeah. So that's the listen and fun tripwire in 1/12 scale.
Oh man, I remember I might have told JD this already. I remember going to, I think it was Radio Shack in Orville, California, circa 1986, 87, and seeing that listen tripwire. And my friend Pop Tart, he was very spoiled. He's the only kid I never knew who had the flag, for example. And I told him about it, just like, hey, this is, I wouldn't have worded it this way back then. This weird little oddity at the Radio Shack is repaint of tripwire. I don't even think repaint was in our back then. And he's like immediately, Dad, we need to go to Radio Shack, and he just went and unceremoniously bought it. So even though I never owned it, I was aware of it back then, which was not the case for a lot of people. So it's a little bit in my heart. So I love seeing that you did that. That's friggin' dope.
Yeah, he absolutely hates tripwire. Tripwire was like,
I'm aware.
Yeah. He's heard the rant.
Tripwire is one of my first 3 figures as a kid. So it was Torpedo, Tripwire, and then Snow Job. So those were my first, like the only figures I had for a really long time.
That's a cool and kind of unique trio to start with. I like that.
Well, and I had the Polar Battle Bear. So
and in the case of Snow Job, it definitely was a cool choice.
I see what you did there.
So yeah, here's one of JD's customs.
Yeah. Well,
but I did
Love
the card
that.
art for it.
Yeah, well,
So cool.
you painted it too.
Oh yeah, did I paint it?
Yeah,
Oh
because
yeah, I guess I did.
it was an Apex Legends figure. I did some modifications on it because when I got this figure, I'm like, this thing is so crazy looking that I could pass it off as low light version 3 because in the vintage line in 1991, they gave an up and down redesign to low light. A lot of
Mhm.
collectors don't use it as low light because,
Doesn't look like
yeah, objectively, it
Is that
doesn't.
the one that had like the black beard or something?
Yes.
yeah,
Yes,
Blackbeard.
Yeah.
okay.
I mean,
So after my
objectively,
time.
I could see why people don't like it as low light. But for me, I didn't like the original low light figure. I loved what they did with low light in the cartoon, but that figure to me just did not match the energy that low light had. Like the the face sculpt, the huge head, the pig nose, the just it, the head was big, so the watch cap was big, and the whole thing just looked like a balloon. Um, I
I
just
love A Real American Hero, arguably the greatest toy line of all time.
Yeah.
see.
Forever be in my heart. But man, those things are lumpy looking in retrospect.
I
It's part of
think a
the
lot
charm,
of
but it's
big
like, wow, I
heads.
don't remember them looking like this.
Yeah. It's funny you should say that because I've thought that going through my collection. I'm like, man, that is a goofy ass figure.
You know,
I love them.
a lot of the figures do have big heads, and I do think in some ways it's part of the charm. But in
Agreed.
the case of like low light, it ruined the figure aesthetically for me.
Fair
So
enough.
when I got the 1991 figure, he didn't obviously look anything like low light in the Sunbow cartoon, but it had the figure to me had the attitude and the energy of that low light. So it immediately became my default low light, and it's my favorite figure in the vintage line. And when I bought this Apex Legends figure, I'm like, this dude is crazy looking. I think I could use it as low light. And then I started making mods and painting it a little bit, but I'm like, I can't match the teal, and it put me in a. And then Brian's like, send it to me. I'll
Nice.
paint it and I'll card it, and he did, and I was very happy.
I used to send stuff to people to paint a lot. I've finally gotten to the point where I'll do like dry brushing and like some like black washes or something, but I'm never going to try anything more ambitious than that with paint.
I don't
Uh,
know, man. It's like I said, it's my favorite part, and I've done so many tutorials I've got on my YouTube on the YouTube channel. So check out
that's
the
dangerous to hear, but I might have to watch this. Maybe you'll
yeah.
persuade me after all.
It's it's when I first started customizing, that's what I called it was painting. So because that was what I like to do most was paint it. So I tell my wife I'm gonna go paint for a little bit.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's the other reason I don't want to paint more, and I've said this before, probably to JD too, but like I'm pretty happy with how much I get to spend on my toys. And there comes a point, like I used to tell my wife, like if we ever get to the point where we're making a lot of money, I don't necessarily want to buy hot toys, but I'd like to like be able to buy a hot toys figure like once a month or something.
Sure.
They just kept raising the prices, so that's never gonna happen. But so I have enough, hobby funds. I'm definitely not whining about that, but it's still like a very fixed hobby income. And I'm like, I don't want to set aside any of that for paint. I just want to buy action figures.
And
So that's
that's
another reason I don't get into
Fair
paint.
enough.
absolutely because I that is one of the things I do not recommend is cheap paint.
Yeah, good paint is expensive. I've got a lot of those bottles of the craft paint. I make it work to a
Well,
point, but yeah,
I
it's
make it work, but it's because I only do dry brushes and stuff, and that's pretty idiot proof. You can't really, it doesn't really matter what kind of paint you use for that.
Yeah, the thicker paint, like the craft paint, is actually really good for dry brushing. And I've got a really good video on dry brushing even. I learned a really
Definitely watch
cool
your videos.
technique. You take a Kleenex and you load your brush and you brush it off 3 times and then dry brush.
Nice.
And
Okay,
it
I'm
yeah,
gonna watch those videos for sure.
yeah, I'll send you some links. But I think I don't see anything wrong with kit bashing. I think that is to me that is the hardest custom to make is a kit bash custom because you've got to get the parts to match and you've got to get colors to match. And that is not easy.
It's surprising how often there's just subtle variations in color across figures that there's no need for there to be. And it's like, well, what's the thinking there?
I
Uh,
sometimes I wish there were more flat gray figures out there that had uniform gray, but like if you get 3 gray figures from Hasbro and the GI Joe line, they use 3 different gray.
Yeah.
Even blacks sometimes don't match. I'm
Yep.
like, really? That's not going to go together. So
Yeah, no, I've actually, it's funny you should mention that because I've talked about, like, you would think black would be an easy color to paint, but it's not,
yeah, I
because
could see.
there is so much variation in the tonality of black.
Yeah, we think of it as fixed. It's really not.
Exactly. And that's, I think kit bashing is one of the hardest, and the people that can do it well are really impressive because you have to have depth of knowledge of the, like, almost every toy line.
Yeah.
I mean, you really got to know your toys to know what will fit with what and what you can color match together, and that's not easy.
Yeah, because Monty and I were talking about how with the Star Wars Black Series line and the Indiana Jones line, they're specifically 1/12,
Yeah,
where
like actual 1/12.
yeah, where Hasbro with the Joe line and the Marvel Legends line, they skew a little more 1/10.
Yes.
And see, I think McFarlane says his lines are 1/10, but they're not. They're too tall for
Yeah.
1/10. So
All toys grow, and it doesn't make sense because like plastic costs money. Like if they were shrinking them slowly, I would at least understand it on a business level.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird.
well, and the 6-inch line now, I've noticed more toy lines, NECA, McFarlane, they're going more towards the 7-inch line.
Yeah.
And I used to think that was like a weird, like an oddball misfit scale, but now that NECA's doing it, and I think
Super 7's doing it.
Mezco, are they still 6-inch or are they 7-inch figures too?
Mezco's definitely still 1/12. I
Yeah.
think with it being in their name, they would probably get some pushback with it. But
Oh,
they,
is
they
it?
have
I
a
don't
lot of
know. I just know it's Mezco. I don't.
they have variation in their scale
Yeah,
too.
I've got a couple Mezco figures, I think, a couple Iron Man figures.
And within the Mezco line, the variation in scale is kind of notable. But like, here's their Destro next to a Marvel Legend. So Destro's of course a pretty big dude, but with this being a female legend, yeah, I'd say they line up pretty well. But again, as you noted, legends themselves are a little bigger.
I meant to ask, where the heck is Destro's medallion?
Someone else asked that when I posted the photos. He's like, "Oh no, did it not come with a medallion? Did you lose it?" I'm like, "No, the accessories are just so overwhelming. I threw him in a few things in the tote, and it wasn't until I was editing the photos. I'm like, oh yeah, I never did put that on him, did I?"
Because we're used to seeing Destro's
Very,
manly
very
Khan
true.
Noonien Singh chest, but
we
they
take
both
for
wear
granted the
they
Destro
both wear
design,
necklaces too. So
arguably the most absurd design in a real American hero, and we all know that saying a lot. And yes, I'm including
But
the
it's
lunar and all
iconic.
that.
hey,
He's
put it
got
up close. Is
disco
that
chest,
smiling?
exposed disco chest, and
My
a
God, he's
flared
smiling.
collar and a steel head. Yeah, he has 3 heads. One's like really iconic, rigid Destro. Then
Yeah.
this one's smiling. Um,
No,
yeah, I almost didn't buy him because in all the reviews, I don't know if it was their studio lights, but like the exposed flesh. Like when I was a kid, I didn't know if that was a shirt or his flesh or what because the color was so weird. And I hated how the color looked in the videos. But when I got it in hand, I'm like, actually, I kind of like this ridiculous pimping bastard. He looks pretty good. I only got him because he was discounted, if I'm being honest, but he's a pretty great toy.
yeah, no, it looks fantastic.
Um, as for Tripwire, he's one of the few I didn't have back in the day. I knew of him, but like I neither loved nor hated him. But then I didn't like 25th anniversary very much. I didn't like the construction. I didn't like the ugly forearm cuts in the initial waves. Blah blah blah. To me, like Pursuit of Cobra perfected that era. But weirdly, the 25th anniversary Tripwire was the first time I kind of sat up and took notice. I really liked that 25th Tripwire for some reason. And then I don't have, unfortunately, the standard classified one. I did get the Tiger Force, but I think the classified Tripwires are really nice too, despite what some bearded haters might have to say about Tripwire.
I mean,
I friggin' look.
I acknowledge the classified figure is better than any tripwire figure had any business being, but I just think that its value is diminished by making it tripwire.
I just love that the character's existence is an affront to you.
Yeah, well, the original figure sucks.
Tell
Like
them what
the
happened to
original.
the rat for yours.
Oh, you know how the
So
standard.
I bought this. I had to buy a second one
Nice.
and to do this custom. So the Tiger Force one wasn't out yet.
Mm.
Yeah. So When this thing was announced, he's like, I'm getting two of them and I'm painting you one as a listening fun tripwire. I'm like, all right, whatever. I didn't expect he was going to. He did. So 6 months later, the figure's actually out. He's like, I got two of them. He said, yours is not going to come with the rat, though, because my wife took it to work with her. I'm like,
As one does.
hey, that's okay.
It got renamed Desk Rat and now works at the DA's office. So
There's probably a commentary there, but I'm not going to parse it.
Oh, yeah, there is. Wait a minute. Did you do that on purpose, ma'am? Never mind. Don't admit it on camera. Yeah, he's like, I'm gonna make you a listening fun tripwire. I'm like,
I love
he's
it.
just making a threat. Oh, no, he did.
He meant it.
But I was like,
A man never jokes about tripwire.
yeah, I'm like, it's the paint job is so good that I can forgive that it's fucking tripwire. um, Although if given the choice between take this Real American Hero tripwire figure or this Deep Six and Shark set, I will take tripwire because fuck Deep Six and fuck the Shark while we're at it.
I think the Shark is awesome.
I think the Shark is a piece of shit.
I think it needs to be reworked, but
I had nostalgic affection for the Shark. I don't think I had Deep Six. I think he's begging for a really cool, really detailed classified redo.
yes.
When I was a kid, the Shark would show up in the cartoon, and I'm like, then sometimes he'd get blown up. Pilot would get out. I'm like, there you go. Keep blowing up sharks. That is the best use of those fucking vehicles.
I love the Shark. I think it's a fantastic idea. Yes,
it's a great idea with a shitty execution.
Yeah, the cockpit does need to be reworked. I'll give you that. And I have seen some amazing customs for Deep Six.
I love that.
Taken in 1/18 scale, they'd taken some parts from like the Iron Man 2 hammer drones.
Oh damn, that could be good.
Yeah, and just I don't remember who the customizer was, but it was phenomenal. The paint job that they had done, they must have done some like water slide decals on it for some of the designs, and
that'd be cool.
Gosh, one of the most beautiful.
I don't remember where Pursuit of Cobra ended and 30th anniversary began. One led right into the other.
They did. The lines ran right into each other.
Yeah, but do you guys remember the Data Viper?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah. He made a female Data Viper costume.
I took him and I think I might have added a different helmet to him. This was 12 years ago or whatever. I can't remember for sure. But I gave him the backpack of when they released him. I think his name was just Skydive. But I actually had the pre-production Rise of Cobra Ripcord version.
Yep. Yeah, I've got one of those too.
Badass jetpack with those wings. I had shark stickers. I don't know what I would have had them from because I never owned a shark that I remember. And I put those on the wings, put that on the Data Viper, and called that figure the Shark. It was kind of fun.
Nice.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
I'll see if I can find photos of that later. I wish I'd kept that one.
Yeah, the original Shark, I always joke I don't like it in any of the color schemes that was ever repainted in. If you can put vac metal chrome on a thing and still not improve it, you have made a terrible vehicle. And
here's my toy blasphemy. I don't like vac metal stuff.
Yeah,
I was okay with it as a kid, but now I don't want any vac metal variants or anything. I don't like glow in the dark either. It just always looks kind of goofy to me.
I always say different strokes for different folks, but I think you're weird. I'm just saying.
The only vac metal. Oh.
I have a toy that I've owned off and on for how long? We lived here 8 years. It's a Mezco Mumra. And I only bring this up because, like I said, about 8 years I've owned it, right? So it's sitting on my couch the other night, and I go in to turn off the light in the office, and it glows like vividly. I'm like, I had no idea for nearly a decade that was a glow in the dark toy.
Wow.
Wait, really?
It doesn't look like one, which begs the question, why do all glow in the dark toys have that stupid look if they don't need to?
Wait, what part of that figure glows? Like
all the blue skin.
Oh, no
shit.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, blew my mind. 8 years I owned it. I felt like such an idiot. But yeah, like why do they all look like 25-cent machine toys to glow in the dark if they don't need to? I don't know.
Oh man.
I remember on your Facebook a couple months ago, you made a post like toys that I'd trade if anybody wanted, and that was on that. And I'm like, well, now I'm wondering, Are you glad you didn't get rid of it?
Well, honestly, I bought it when we first moved back to California. At that time, I was very much like, I'll get a toy, I'll photograph it, I'll get rid of it. I was just like a constant churn, and I've kind of lost that, unfortunately. And toys are building up a bit. I like Thundercats well enough. Thundercats is nowhere near my favorite nostalgic property, but I did revisit the 2011
11.
reboot
Yeah.
last year, and it holds up magnificently. But no, it was just a cool sculpt. Photographed him. I sold him to my friend Scott, who only took it because I had a lot of stuff. Little like here's a lot of the things, and he wanted like a couple things, and I was like, I really just want to get rid of all of it. So he took it, and it sat in storage at his house for like 8 years. So he recently gave me back a bunch of that stuff, including that. And coincidentally, I had just gotten into Animal Warriors of the Kingdom from Spiro Toys.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I
They
like
were my obsession last summer. And I thought, wouldn't it be cool to have a Treyu of House Feralist squaring off against a giant Mumra? So that's the only photo I've captured of Mumra since I got him back from Scott many months ago. And probably the only one I'm going to. So no, I do still plan to get rid of that Mumra, actually.
We had him on the show when he was doing the Kickstarter for that, didn't he?
uh
The Kingdoms of the Animal Warriors,
uh
the original.
yeah, on the original Kickstarter that did
Oh,
it,
for the 118th version?
had Jason on the show. This was
Nice.
what was that, 8 years ago?
More than that.
Probably 10, yeah.
Yeah, but
The
we did.
118th series was quite a while ago.
And now, since Animal Wars or the Kingdom, the second Kickstarter was hugely successful, and then they announced the 6-inch line, and I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah.
So what was already a cool concept, I'm like, they're gonna get the super detailed sculpts and everything. And I've only got four of the figures, and there's a few more I want, including some of the new ones that they're putting out, like the red lizard guy and the rabbit, and there's a few there's a female ape, and I'm like, ooh, she looks like her and Zorana could be friends, or mortal enemies. I don't know, whatever. She looks like a dreadnought. So
I had only planned to get a Treyu. He's the sculpt that spoke to me most. I'm going to get that guy. I'm going to photograph him. And I'm like, all right, I'll get a couple more. And then this cat Melvin and the Animal Warriors group is like, oh hey, like he saw one of my photos, and I'm using a different name on Facebook. I'm not even Monty Limbs on Facebook, but he saw one of my photos in the group. He's like, "You're Geekery." I'm like, "Yeah, how'd you know?" He's like, "Oh, you knew you on his tank like 10 years ago." He's like, "You won't remember this, but I asked you some questions about photography because I was just getting started in it." He's like, you were really supportive." I'm like, "Oh, cool. I'm glad I could help." He's like, "Yeah, listen, let me know which Animal Warriors figures you don't have. I'm going to send them to." And I was like, "I'm sure he doesn't mean that the way it sounded, but sure, I'll play along." I'm like, "These are the only ones I have." And I got a box from the dude, like sealed, like figures.
Wow.
He's like, "Yeah, dude, I have doubles. Like, enjoy." I was like, "Oh my god!" Like, I barely know the cat. It was so generous of him. So I unexpectedly ended up with a ton of Animal Warriors.
well, if you ever decide to share the wealth on that, I'm just saying.
Keep you in mind, my friend. I'll keep you in mind.
Absolutely.
This is the first one I bought in a long time because Atreyu is my favorite, and this is a variant of him. This is like a gladiator version.
I love the paint on the face.
Yeah,
that is
good stuff. This isn't his armor. This is Mattel movie He-Man armor, but I thought it looked good on him.
really
Nice.
oh
Yeah, you can.
it fits in perfectly well with the
Thanks.
Like I said,
with
Kid
the
Bashing is-
walk
yeah,
aesthetic.
yeah.
This is my favorite thing, though. They've for this one, like the idea is like he's a gladiator, so he's been kind of like in a bad way for a long time. So there's like kind of a rusty patina on
Yeah,
his sword.
yeah, that's really nice.
And that to me, I'm like, oh man, if this is the direction they're going, they're just going to get better. Because I love Animal Warriors, and I even love that they're like, I always joke that they're about 15% more cartoony than my general preferred aesthetic in action figures. Yeah. But I can respect that. That's their aesthetic, and like it kind of gives me a little bit of the Sigma 6 vibe. I'm like, cool, I can dig it. But if they were a little more like on the Monster Force side of the aesthetic scale, I might like them more. So I saw these like rusting swords. I'm like, oh, dude, this company's gonna be doing some beautiful stuff 2 or 3 years from now.
Yeah, I really like what they've got going on. I actually wish I could grab a couple more of them, but when it comes right down to it, there's always something else that grabs the money first. But
which of the houses calls to you most, the cats or the apes?
Yeah, it's the apes. I really, although I've got a couple of the cats, the apes for some reason they kind of work for me. But
I
I
might
like
have
that
an
they
ape
put
or
out a
two.
bunch. In fact, there's an all black one
Yeah.
that I'm just like, oh, I feel like I need him. And um there's one, I think its name is Mongrel. I don't know what kind
The
of animal.
hyena.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
was awesome.
He's the first. I don't have him yet. He's the first one that has. I think it's yeah. It's not the new yellow cat. I think it's mongrel. Has an articulated jaw. So that's another
He does?
very encouraging sign of what they're planning to do moving
Didn't
forward.
realize that. Oh,
Yeah,
cool.
it's pretty dope. I might have an ape or two I can spare that I can send to you. Unfortunately, I think the all black one was my least favorite, only because when I'm photographing something like that, it's
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 they
it's
are
a
hard to
me thing.
photograph.
It's my skill level. It's the issue, not the toy. But I can't pull out the detail. I've gotten a little better at it, but I was like, okay, this one's going to frustrate me. So my counselor at my elementary school where I work, um, she takes old toys I'm not using anymore and like uses them as like incentive prizes for the kids. So I think the all black one might be the one I gave to my school. But
Right.
I'll go digging. I think I've got a couple apes that I can send you.
And
So
that's
what camera equipment are you using then?
Okay. Um, Many years ago when I started, I was using a Canon Power Shot. I don't remember what the numbers were after it, and it was 8 megapixels, I think. And that's what I used until like a decade ago. And then I upgraded to one that was like 12 megapixels. I'm like, yeah, boy, check me out, 12 megapixels. Woo! Um, and I've tried to upgrade, and it never works for me. I literally buy the same camera over and over again. And I had a period of like 5 years where it was so outdated and so unwanted that like if I would drop it at the beach during a shoot and it would break, I'd go on eBay and buy the same one used for like $40. Now it's so old that I don't know if it's like desired by like ironic collectors or what, but now they're like 200 or 300 bucks. I'm like, oh no, this sucks. But in a happy coincidence, like 2 or 3 months before I broke my last one, I've gone through like 5 or 6 of these things over the years. Um, I saw like something set aside in our office at my school to be thrown away. And I'm like, that looks like a camera. And my secretary's like, yeah, it used to be for the yearbook, but now they just use cell phones and stuff. Nobody's going to use that. I'm like, it's still a camera. I'm like, y'all mind if I take it? And so I took it, brought it home, set it on a shelf, didn't think anything of it. 2 or 3 months later, my camera breaks. So I pull it down. It's even older. It's literally from like 2008 or something. And that's what I've been using for the last 6 months. I don't remember how many megapixels it is, but it's a joke. But my favorite camera of all time, Canon PowerShot SD 1300 IS, I think. I bought 4 or 5 of them over the years. It's very quaint, but it's sturdy. It gets the job done and it suits me very well. And then only recently have a cell phone cameras gotten to the point where it's never going to replace the camera for me, but
Yeah.
I tend to use both on a shoot. And like
Okay.
I don't want to shoot if it's super sunny. One of my gaps in my skill is I need it to be overcast or I need to be under a bridge in the shade. That's just how I can pull out a good photo. But in direct sunlight, I can still get something good on this. So I use my cell phone, which I always have to ask my kid, what kind of cell phone do I have? I can't remember. And a beat to hell Canon Power Shot that's almost old enough to vote. It's crazy.
Well, yeah, because Brian does a lot of photography, like scenery. We went to Niagara Falls the other day and he brought this camera. It's got a lens about this big and about this wide. And I'm like, if you put that on top of a sniper scope, you could shoot a guy, in Hawaii.
So,
Um,
Brian, you're what I call a real photographer. Like, I don't know the first thing about like people will ask me like, what settings do you use? I'm like, man, I don't know. I figured out what worked 15 years ago and I keep it on that. Like, I can dig into the camera and explain to you, but I'm like, the IS, whatever that is, it says it's for. Like, I don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. No, I shoot completely in manual mode, so I know shutter speeds and apertures and ISO and white balance and
See, I'm 20 years into my photography hobby. In terms of like knowledge, total amateur. One thing I used to use Flickr, which most people
oh yeah.
young never even heard of.
Oh yeah. I had a
So
flipper
I
camera.
remember Flickr.
I had a
one thing I
flipper
loved
camera.
about it is without me doing anything, I would load my photo, and even if I like uploaded it to PicMonkey and edit it and re-downloaded it, I could upload it to Flickr and it would have all those settings that I used in it. So
Yeah.
if anybody
Read
asks, I could copy paste here. Here's what I did for your reference, even though I don't know what it means.
Yeah, all that information, it's called metadata. It's burned into your digital file.
Ah,
So software like Lightroom
Yeah.
Photoshop will read the metadata in your picture.
It'll retain it. That's wild to
Yeah.
me. I
Yeah.
love that. It's like science
Yeah.
fiction.
There's so like professional photographers, there's a setting in Lightroom, which is basically a photo where it catalogs your photos, is what
Mhm.
Lightroom does. So there's a setting in there where they can turn off the metadata when they
Oh.
export the photo so that professionals do this so that like their pictures can't be replicated.
You can't mimic their style. That's smart. That's very
Yeah,
smart.
because that's what people were doing. They were downloading those pictures and then uploading them to places like Flickr, and it would show the camera settings.
Wow, that's scandalous.
Yeah, yeah. So,
I don't know what kind he uses, but my dad is a wildlife photographer, and weirdly, the man exhibited no tendencies toward creativity my whole life. He was a laborer, a drinker until about 30 years ago he quit. Um, but it never would have struck me as the type. And he's pursued all sorts of creative endeavors. But he and I, independently of one another, but simultaneously and without realizing it for 6 months or a year, became photographers. Me, toys, him wildlife. He invested quite a few $100s in a camera. I couldn't tell you what kind it is. Um, he also doesn't mess with like lens attachments or anything. But he said his has paid for itself over and over again. He posted some photos of bald eagles the other day. And as he put it, like, I guess if I climbed up into the tree, I might have gotten a better shot. But like, I mean, it looks like he did.
nice.
In another life, I would go your route. I respect the hell out of people who actually know what they're talking about with their camera. Um, I worry like if I'm on a day long hike at the beach or at some state park, like I want to be able to kind of lightly toss my camera in the tote, like onto the ground or whatever. And I'm worried if I had like an $800 lens I was attaching to it, I would get too fussy and I wouldn't be like if I was like I still cite Ed Spear, even though he quit photographing toys years ago. But if I was like him and I had like an elaborate studio setup and I just did photography indoors, I probably would be spending a lot of my money on stuff like that. But since half of the appeal to me is getting out in nature and hiking, and that can be very rough on my toys, let alone the camera. Like I said, I've broken 5 of them over the last 15 years or so. It just doesn't seem like a sensible thing for me to do. But
Yeah, nothing makes your heart sink faster than dropping a lens, man.
I
I've dropped two or three of them and
I
broken.
wondered about that because it sounds like you're willing to go outside. No, like I do. Yeah, like if you went to Niagara Falls and stuff, I was gonna say, like, how precarious is that? That's scary.
I've shot all over the world. I mean, when I when I was contracting in Afghanistan, that's where I most spent most of my money was on camera gear because I was there with a buddy of mine and who is really good at photography. And he's like, "This is camera you want. This is lens you want." I'm like, "Okay, I can afford that. I can afford that. I can afford that." So
Nothing else to spend your money on when you're stuck there anyway,
yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah, it was a new lens every month, and I came home with a camera bag full of stuff. So,
Oh, that's so cool.
and then I
Uh,
was a photo assistant for a famous photographer who does off-camera strobes, so off-camera flash.
yeah,
So
damn,
I
you really
learned
do
a
know
lot of
your stuff.
lighting techniques for stuff like that from him.
Damn, you really do know your stuff. Um, I don't remember now if he was in Afghanistan or elsewhere, but if you guys know Valero Bots, the customizer who like, he crafts. It started out as just weird little robots. His name is Rupert Valero, and so hence Valero Bots. Um, but like he would literally just make robots out of bottle caps and stuff. And it started when he was in the service at somewhere Afghanistan or something, politically equivalent. And he would just take whatever materials he had at hand. Now he buys toys and customizes them and resells them and everything. But um, I was never in the military, but or never worked in any kind of capacity like that. But when we were teaching overseas, we did spend a year in Pakistan. And the beauty
Yeah,
of that and teaching in Africa was travel from those places is so much cheaper than travel from the States. I got
yeah.
to photograph toys like Windsor Castle on an uninhabited island on the Red Sea. I miss all that, and it was fun.
Whoa, that's amazing.
Yeah, I spent 4 years in Africa, so
Oh, whereabouts?
mostly West Africa. So
Okay, complete opposite for me. We were in the Horn. That's
yeah,
cool.
okay, yeah. No, I was in Ghana a bunch of times, Equatorial Guinea, Chad, Sierra Leone, Liberia.
Oh, dang, you have been around.
Yeah, so
Um,
That's cool.
my extensive international travel includes Toronto, Canada, and Toronto, Canada. That is as far outside of the United States as I've gotten. I
To be
have
fair, I never made it to Toronto, so hey,
yeah,
we got our.
I have yet to leave the continental or the continent, and eventually I would really like to travel to like England or someplace. Really, Australia would be awesome, but everything there can kill you, and I don't.
Everything there wants to kill you.
Yes, to kill you.
I don't.
Yes.
I don't want to die on my vacation, especially not from some wildlife that I didn't even realize was there until it was far, far too late to do anything.
Australia is my dad's bucket list place. It's not going to happen. I'm sure he's 76 now, and he doesn't have
Oh, and you neglected to mention that your dad has that badass, manly handlebar mustache. It is one of the coolest mustaches I've ever seen.
He and my mom divorced 30 years ago or something, but she used to say her one celebrity crush was Sam Elliott. And I thought, Dad must be pretty flattered by that because he essentially looks like Sam Elliott.
um, yeah,
Shall we do the questionnaire?
yeah. You want to so
I got it right here.
okay. Oh, yeah, we don't have to use our phones. We're in the same room.
Yeah.
This is weird.
I bet.
So
Is this the only time, like the first time you guys have got to be in the room doing the podcast together?
the first time since 2021
Yeah.
when I traveled to Colorado. I traveled to Colorado in 2021 and 2020, so it's been a few years.
Yeah.
But yeah, so what this is the Colbert questionnaire was designed to ask hard hitting questions that gets to the heart of the person answering the questions, and
Sure.
it'll make you truly known to the world. Are you ready to be known to the world, Monty?
Yeah, I mean, you know me, I'm an introvert, but sure, hit me.
You're also in public education, so hey, oh yeah, wait, hang on. You got to describe the teacher's gifts that you got for Teacher Appreciation Day.
Oh,
He
geez.
uh, that one of them was really funny sign, and it's like everybody gave you these things that are basically you're a nice guy, but hey, get off my lawn, that type of
Yeah, it was a bunch of different like desktop signs that were like, I'll be back in 10 minutes if I come back. If I'm not, read the sign again. What now? I mean, how can I help you? Yeah, I was like, I'm noticing a common thread here.
but so want to answer some fun questions.
By all means.
So some of them we've kept from the questionnaire, and then some of them we've changed out for our own questions.
Nice.
Some of them, they aren't, I won't say they're not appropriate, but they don't always fit the guest either. So if we get to one of those, we'll let you know.
I reserve the right if one it doesn't seem to fit me to storm out of the room and say I'll never work for this podcast again.
Fuck yes, you
Yep.
do. Absolutely.
100%.
All right, so first question. What is the best sandwich?
Like we said, deep philosophical questions.
Yeah, we're gonna have to come back in a couple of days. You can't just throw this at me. You know what I mean? Like you got to give a man time.
Oh, it's on the spot, man. I mean, and you cannot be the only one that hasn't done this because all of our guests have done this.
So this is a very specific one, which is no fun because it's not like people are going to relate to it. And
hey, you never know. We have 16 listeners, and I don't know where they all are. You could have somebody in your town that will identify.
Late 90s, early 2000s. Wife and I lived in Santa Rosa, California. Don't know if this restaurant still exists. I think the restaurant was called the Crossroads, and they had a thing called the Crossroads sandwich. I don't remember all the ingredients, and I wouldn't even be able to eat it now because I've been a vegetarian for like 7 years. But it had chicken and like thin sliced, I think, potatoes. I think I discovered feta cheese through this sandwich.
Okay.
And something like it sounds kind of god awful now that I'm saying it, but I was obsessed with that sandwich and I would get it once a week. So I would have to, for nostalgic purposes, say that's probably still the best sandwich I ever had, even though I haven't had it in decades. That said, these days, because I'm a boring hippie, I would get some sort of vegetarian sandwich because it's who I am. But I feel very passionately about this, and I don't care if I offend your listeners. Now, I'm just gonna speak.
Oh no, please do.
Oh yeah, please offend them, all of them.
I have no use for traditional condiments. I mean, I'll use mayonnaise or mustard, but I could totally forego those in lieu of in favor of hummus and guacamole. Those are my favorite condiments.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I can dig that. My wife got me hooked on hummus, and then I dated a Hispanic gal who was one generation from Mexico, and her mom taught me how to make guacamole.
Ooh, real guacamole.
I make my own guacamole, so I
right over.
Like that. All right, next question is, what is one thing that you own that you should really throw out?
Got a minute?
Life doesn't count.
Not counting all these bullshit toys behind me.
Oh, of course
Um,
not.
honestly, even though I just said like I don't purge my toys as much as I did, the churn has slowed down and the collection is building up. With toys and everything else, I'm actually really pretty good at getting rid of things. I got 2000, yeah, COVID year. My wife and I went on like a food plan, and I've since gained back about half the weight. But when I met my goal, I got rid of all my clothes, bought new clothes, and I refuse. I mean, I'll buy new clothes, but I refuse to buy new clothes as I'm gaining weight because that's my accountability piece.
Sure.
Um, I get rid of clothes all the time. I get rid of toys all the time. Oh, okay. Never mind. I've got an answer as I throw my Animal Warriors of the Kingdom sword. Um, when my wife was pregnant with our daughter, who just turned 21, I had a Nintendo 64, which even at that time was a very old console. But I would always wait and like when I was a teenager, I would buy last year's Nikes because they were cheaper. And likewise, I would buy the second, like not the new console, but whatever the last one was, because then all the games were cheaper. So
Yep.
I had a Nintendo 64 when everybody else was getting their PlayStations on or whatever. And my favorite game was WWF, as it was known at the time, No Mercy. They had a really robust create a wrestler feature. I would make my friends, I would make celebrities. It was really fun.
That's awesome. That's an awesome feature.
Yeah.
It was so fun. And then my wife got pregnant, and I thought, I don't want to be that guy who's distracted by video games when he's got a baby. So I unceremoniously sold a Nintendo 64. That was 2003 or 2004. I still have in a memorabilia box my WWF No Mercy cartridge because I had created so many creator wrestlers. If I ever get in 64 again, I didn't want to have to start over. It's been sitting in a box for 20. I'm sure it doesn't work. And it's not like it's taken up a lot of room. But
Right.
do I strictly need to have a Nintendo 64 cartridge for 20 plus years when I don't have a Nintendo 64? Probably not.
You
So
know, I just the creativity aspect of
Yeah.
it.
No, it's
I think it's worthy to keep it just because of that. But a case could be made that you might never own that system again. And after, you know, the aliens, after we've managed to destroy ourselves and the
yeah, let's find
extraterrestrials
it.
coming, yeah, they're gonna be like, oh, what is this? They're gonna put it in, and they're gonna be like, oh wow, somebody created athletes, and
So
this
JD in 1989 is when Harry Met Sally, directed by Rob Reiner.
I
The
love
big
that. It's
deal.
one of my favorite movies ever.
Probably the movie I've seen most because I'm a traditional manly man, and I'm not even kidding. It might be the movie I've seen most. But at the end, Billy Crystal gives a very charming monologue to convince Meg Ryan that they need to be together, and it's really powerful. And she's crying when he's done, and she says, "You see, you say things like this, and it makes it so hard to hate you, and I do. I hate you, Harry." And that's what I want to say to you right now, JD. I was about to say, Mike brings the painting and he makes his own guacamole. What the hell do you even bring into the show? But then
No,
you enabled me and you made it okay for me to have kept a Nintendo 64 cartridge for 20 years. And now I can't hate you. So I'm glad you're part of the show.
I mean,
You
I
were on thin
I
ice. I'm not going to lie, but you're
Enabling is what we do best here.
that's right. And that's why I
My
love the
wife will attest to that.
show. Yeah, right. I can imagine.
um, third question: what is the scariest animal?
What's that deep water fish that has the fucked up light that hangs over its head?
Anglerfish.
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 Yeah, that thing
That's up there. That's
is
definitely up there, but I'm never going to run across one. So like, who cares? So
yeah.
on that level, it's not. I mean, in terms of ones I've ever like been near, probably just a bear. It's a boring answer, but those things will
No,
wreck the fucking
it was
world.
my answer too. Bears are
Man,
fucking scary.
my dad photographs them, and if it's just like lapping at the water or doing something boring, he'll start making noises and shit to get its attention. And
Yeah, but then the bear sees his mustache and he's like, "Whoa, I'm not messing with
that's right. I ain't fucking with him. Like
Bears probably have a rule. Don't fuck
my
with these.
dad has like concealed carry. Like he's got a pistol on him at all times. And I mean, setting aside what a pistol will help you any against a fucking bear anyway. But he told me once, like he's like, I was close enough to one I knew if he came for me, I wouldn't have time to get that fucking gun out. And I told him, I'm gonna have to write your eulogy someday. It's gonna be he died the way he lived, antagonizing bears. But he he doesn't want to get killed by a bear. Let me clarify. My dad does not want to get killed by a bear. But if given the choice between being torn asunder by a bear and like dying in his bed of cancer. Like I think he'd be okay going out that way. And as an old cowboy, it would kind of suit him. So I would be horrified if my dad got chewed up by a bear and killed, but I'd also be like,
Not surprised.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah,
it would really confirm your fears. I mean, that
Right.
nobody wants that fear
I don't
confirmed.
think he's even afraid of him. I love the man. I just don't know if he has the sense to be afraid of the damn things. He just loves them.
All right. So the next question is coffee. How do you take it?
I don't.
Did you
Firmly,
used to, or were you just
emphatically
never?
anti-coffee. Always have been.
Okay.
Okay.
There may have been a possibility that I would have liked it, but when I was about 8, I grabbed a cup thinking it was my Kool-Aid, and it was my mom's cold coffee that had been sitting out.
Oh,
There went any lingering chance that I might have developed a love for coffee. My
sure.
wife loves it. I will say I do kind of like the smell, but I
Yeah.
will never be a coffee drinker. I don't like tea either, and I cut out soda years ago. So pity me. I work in public education and I don't consume caffeine. It's pretty rough.
How the fuck?
Yeah, I don't know, man.
Well,
I snort a rail every morning. It gets me through. I'm okay. I got my routine.
all right, fair enough. Fair enough. All right. Have you ever asked someone for their autograph?
Yes, but I wouldn't now. When I was 17, 18, my cousin and I got into the metal band. They're much more specific genre than that, but I don't know how to parse all the different kinds of metal. Typo Negative. They were
Oh,
just
yeah.
they were just
Yeah.
breaking big. Bloody Kisses had just come out, and
Yeah.
we were just starting to get really into them. And then they were touring, and they came like an hour or two away. It's like to a little club. I'm like,
Nice.
yeah, let's go see Typo Negative.
Yeah, hell
And it
yeah.
was such a little club that like there was no security or anything. Like everything was just open after the show. We're like, can we just wander back here? And we hung out with the band for like half an hour. Uh,
Nice.
they signed all these flyers for them. Pete Steele, the singer, who's now God been dead probably 15 years, rest in peace. He was very funny and like kind of living the gimmick. My cousin didn't bring his girlfriend Diane, but we had a full size Bloody Kisses poster. And he's like, hey, could you sign this to my girlfriend Diane? And they had a Typo Negative had a song on their first album, something like unsuccessfully coping with infidelity or something. But the chorus and the unofficial title is I know you're fucking someone else. So he said, could you sign this to my girlfriend Diane? And he wrote to die, D-I-E, new word A-N-N-E. I know you're fucking someone else, Pete Steele. So he was just like really like leaning into the character. It was really fun. I met Kurt Busiek. It's kind of random. The artist of Astro City.
Astro City, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
the comic book, circa 2000, no, probably late 90s. And I asked him to sign a copy of one of my Astro City books. Funny thing, it was like there was some kind of not comic book convention, but like publicist thing or something, like book vendors or something. And he was at that. And then like 2 days later, I met him at the mall, and I'm like, "Do I know you?" And it took us both like 5 minutes. He's like, "Oh, I signed some stuff for you the other day," but it just I didn't know what he looked like before I met him. Oh, and I take it back. It wasn't Kurt Busiek. It was Brent Anderson, the artist. I apologize. It's been a long time. So like when I was younger, my fanboy tendencies went in that direction. Now I think as an introvert, I respect. I would just assume that a celebrity wouldn't want to be bothered.
Yeah.
At most, I might be like, "Hey, I really like your work, thank you," and just kind of keep walking. I don't judge people who do want autographs. It is at some point it became like that somebody signed their name on a piece of paper. This is kind of weird. So it's not really something that appeals to me. But yeah, somewhere I probably still have Pete Steele's autograph and maybe Brent Anderson's. I'm not sure.
Uh, yeah, I get some of my figures autographed, but I go to the conventions to do it. So
And that's a little different too. I feel like that's kind of becomes a part of the piece. You know what I mean?
yeah, definitely.
And people sometimes get even like a retail figure that's sealed, signed by like the actor who played it or something. Like I don't know. Maybe it's just me
I get
projecting.
some pretty
Like that
I get
kind of
some
makes
pretty interesting reactions from the
yeah.
people because it's they'll look at it and they're like, "Where'd you get this?" I'm like, "I made this," and they're like, "Oh, all right."
Patrick Warburton went nuts for
Yeah,
it.
Patrick Warburton said that is the coolest thing I've ever seen. I need
What
to
did you make? Was it the Tick or Brock Sampson or
Brock Sampson.
nice?
Yeah,
That's
no,
beautiful.
he's like in his like total Patrick Warburton voice. He's like, that is the coolest thing I've ever seen. I need a picture of that. So he took a picture of me with the figure.
Ah, that's so cool.
And then Adam Savage, I got autographed one of my figures last year, and he
Nice.
thought I thought it was great because I did the whole figure, did the card, front and back, and
He was on his Instagram page with him.
yeah,
Nice.
I
No,
made his social
in
media.
that context, I would want to get something like that signed too. If I made something like that and met the person, that's pretty dope.
All right, next question is, what do you think happens when you die?
You guys ever read and or see Lonesome Dove?
Yes, I've read the
No.
books.
So I'm a big fan of Larry McMurtry's novel. I'm a big fan of the 1989 TV miniseries starring Robert Duvall and Tommy Lee Jones.
Yep.
There's a very obscure character. He works on the ranch of Clara, the love interest of Gus, Robert Duvall's character. Um, I don't remember the character's name. I was thinking it was Bolivar, but I think Bolivar was the cook at the Hat Creek cattle place. Anyway, this old Latino gentleman works on this woman's ranch, and times being what they are, the Old West, they have to bury a lot of people. And she
People
asks
die.
him at one point, "What do you think happens after you die?" And he says, "Not much, I guess. You're just dead." And that's pretty much what I think. I wasn't raised with any religion, and my sort of spirit quest at 13 was, "Huh, do I believe in this? I guess not." But I did ask two people. I was on a fishing trip with my dad. I'm like, "Hey, Dad, you believe in God?" He goes, "Nah." That was the whole conversation. And I asked his mom, my grandma Williams, gone now these nearly 30 years. And she didn't strike me as religious necessarily, but some people say I'm not religious, I'm spiritual. Like, I guess I probably would have expected something like that. But I'm like, "Grandma, do you believe in God?" And she said, "No, Monty, I don't." Like I said, I was about 13 at the time. She said, "I had an operation some years ago." And she goes, "And I found out after the fact that I died on the table for a few minutes." And she goes, "I didn't see anything." And that was it. Like, she didn't
Oh,
feel need to project me anything. So, like, I kind of like that the two people I went to were very just matter of fact. And yeah, I would love to believe this, there's more to it. And I'm open to the idea that there's more than what I can perceive.
Sure.
The comedian Dana Gould has a great bit about, the universe being unknowable. He's like, "My dog doesn't understand my laptop. It doesn't mean like my laptop doesn't exist." So, like, on that level, I know my intellect can't comprehend the whole universe, but BJ Novak, who was on The Office as the Ryan the Temp, he
yeah.
was also he was one of the writers as well,
Oh.
and he wrote a book of short stories. And when I lived in Idaho, I had like a 30-minute each way commute, so I was pounding through audiobooks, and I put his on. It's a really really good collection. One of the stories is weirdly poignant. Most of them are really just funny, but the main character, about whom I remember nothing, dies and goes to heaven, and he looks up his grandma who died when he was like 5. The dude's an adult when he dies. And she's like, "Oh my God, sweetie, oh, you're here. It's so amazing." And they hang out for like a week. And finally she tells him, like, "Okay, here's the thing. I love you. And it's been so great to reconnect with you. But when I died, you were 5. I'm in heaven. I've got a whole life up here. I'm not going to spend all my time with you." And it was kind of a revelation for me. I thought, if there really was something like a heaven, like, I would want to spend it with my wife, obviously. And I'd like to think she'd want to spend it with me. But her mom died 35 years ago or whatever. She'd presumably want to spend it with her. I never even met her. So, like, would there be copies of us? You know what I mean? Like, I get to hang out with my wife, Tara, but is it really her, or is she off in her heaven with her mom? So I like to parse it on that level as an intellectual exercise, but no, I've been an atheist since
That is
1990.
deep as shit.
Yeah, I like it.
From a comedy writer. That's the funny thing. It was a really sweet
Yeah,
story.
That's kind of brilliant. Yeah.
Kind of melancholy, but it was neat. I liked it. But yeah, I've been an atheist since 1990.
Ah, favorite action movie.
Geez, that would be rough to try to figure out. I will say I'm not a big fan of the action genre itself. Many movies I love are. I mean, Indiana Jones, for Christ's sake.
Yeah.
But I'm not like, I've never seen any of the Fast and Furious. I'm not going to go see something because it's an action movie.
Sure.
I will say that for what action is supposed to do, I've only seen one Mission Impossible movie. I think it was Ghost Reckoning. It was like 10 years ago. It had a brief cameo from the dude who played Sawyer in Lost. That's all I really remember. But I remember watching that thinking, objectively, this might be the best action movie I've ever seen. Just unrelenting, innovative. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like I'm not enough of a student of action to speak to it. So I could come up with an answer, but it would probably be something that people don't think of when they think of action. When I think of action, I
Even
think of
better.
like 80s knucklehead action, kind of is what I think of. But mine would have to be something like Indiana Jones. However, if we're going fairly traditional, this isn't traditional. It's mostly sci-fi. I was telling my wife about the first, or not my wife, sorry, my daughter about the first Predator movie the other day. She's never seen any of the Predator movies.
Yeah.
We saw the trailer for the new one. And so I'm like, we went to see Thunderbolts and the trailer for the new Predator played. And I
Yeah.
just whispered in the theater, I'm like, hey, after this, remind me to tell you about Predator. And I vented, as I always do, about that horribly misguided opening shot of the spaceship in space. Because if you omit that, you don't know what's going on for the first 30 or 45 minutes. The movie's much better, but whatever. Somebody, I don't think it was somebody who worked on the movie. I think it might have been, who's the guy that wrote it? He's the guy that did Lethal Weapon, Shane Black, right?
In black.
It might have been him. I think it was like a critic looking back and reappraising the movie decades later, described the plot as a team of mercenaries slowly realize they're in the wrong genre. And I thought that was just so brilliant because it's so true. They're the ultimate badass mercenaries, but they're in over their head.
Yeah.
So on that level, I think Predator is like a very secretly very clever movie. So that might take it for me. I love a little bit like it's not the action I love. It's stuff like is that him, sir? I can't tell because the body's so torn apart, stuff like that. But yeah, I feel like I'm not enough of a student of the game. I've never even seen the John Wick movies yet. That's how lame I am about
I've
action.
only seen two of them.
And I haven't seen the fourth one yet, and I'm a huge John Wick fan.
I
So
feel a little better. I do intend to see them someday.
yeah,
A couple months
I'll
ago,
probably cop out and say Indiana Jones.
a couple months ago,
nothing wrong with
I
that.
rewatched Predator for the first time in a few years. I just wanted, and I put it on in the front room, and my firstborn was on the couch, and usually they're on their phone when I'm watching, but you know, uh, they can multitask. I can't. And at one point, the kids started watching it, and I said, watch this." And as soon as they did the Dylan, you son of a bitch, and the arm thing, and I was like, "You're gonna recognize this." And as soon as they did that, as soon as they you saw the biceps, the kid was like,
The meme.
"Oh yeah, yeah," like the Leo meme. So I was like, "Yeah, I knew they'd recognize that immediately, if nothing else." So, uh,
Predator and Ghostbusters are movies I liked as a kid,
yes.
but they didn't define me or anything. They weren't like my movies, especially Predator. And that was partly a response to all my meathead friends. They're like, dude, the guns in that movie are so badass. And like even back then, I was kind of more like I loved G.I. Joe, but I wasn't in it for the guns. I like the characters. So I watched Predator, I think, once in the 80s. I liked it. I moved on. I revisited it 10 or 15 years ago, not expecting much. And I was like, wow, objectively, this is a really good movie.
it's a
Yeah.
fucking great movie.
Ghostbusters, I saw in theater when I was in second grade, loved it, probably saw it one or two more times. Didn't see it for like 10 or 15 years. And weirdly, my elementary school in Twin Falls, Idaho, 15 years ago, had it in their library on DVD. I'm like, this is weird. So that and Karate Kid, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna rent these, take them home, I'll watch them with my wife, and we'll laugh at how bad these 80s movies are. And both of them, I'm like, wow, Karate Kid and Ghostbusters are kind of masterpieces. I was really shocked at how good they are. I didn't
I
expect it to
went
hold.
to see the re-release of Ghostbusters in the theater, the 40th anniversary the last year.
Wow, that's
It
cool.
was, yeah, it was fantastic. It's one of my wife's favorite movies, and I've done custom box sets for both of those movies, Predator and Ghostbusters.
So cool. I love it.
Let's see. Next question is, what is your favorite smell?
Hmm. Funnily enough, one of them really is coffee, even though I don't like this stuff. Um, this is such a cliche white woman's Instagram answer, but I don't care. I'm going to give it. The morning after the first rain. Like, I hate hot weather. I hate direct sunlight. I love winter.
That's an awesome smell.
Whenever I go outside and it's finally properly rained, I'm like, my world now, bitches. I'm a winter boy. So that's what I'm going to have to go for.
Well, on the other side of the coin, what's your least favorite smell?
You know what? I recently had some dental work done. The smell when they're drilling your teeth.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, that's unpleasant.
Imagine if they did in every flavored jelly bean that tasted like that smell.
Nope. I've had some bad dental work done when I was overseas, and
Ooh,
Oh yeah, yeah.
there's a little PTSD for
you,
you.
I
you
can
had to
imagine.
go to a Russian dentist, didn't you?
Yeah, I did.
That's
Um,
that's hella bleak, man.
Yeah, no, I had a root canal done without anesthetic because the anesthetic didn't work.
Oh my god.
I
I
kept,
had a
kept shooting, and they're like, "You can have no more.
oh
You
no.
can do endure the pain." I'm
I
like,
can't even imagine that because I had a crown put on a couple days ago, and that was really easy. They just took the temporary one off.
Yeah.
But like a few weeks ago, they did all the preliminary work and they were drilling and drilling and drilling. And they had given me a shot and it worked, but it wasn't working completely. And they're like, "Do you want us to give you another shot?" And they had to give me an extra shot the previous time. I was like, "No, I don't want my mouth being numb that much longer. It's fine." I didn't realize how long they were going to be doing it. It wasn't excruciating, but it was like this shy of excruciating, and it went on for 45 minutes. So having none at all, I don't know how you did that, man. That's rough.
It was bad.
I bet.
What was your first concert?
Ooh. Well, my parents took me to a couple. So I'll admit technically my first was Lee Greenwood at the Silver Dollar Fair in Chico, California when I was a kid. Proud to be an American. But the one I cite as my first because it's much cooler and I chose it was AC/DC at the Arco Arena in 1990. Forgotten one hit wonders Love Hate, who pervaded the hit Why Do You Think They Call It Dope? They opened, and I went with my best friend and we were given a ride from Orville to Sacramento by two lesbians. And I always like to add not lipstick lesbians, real biker lesbians in the AC/DC tradition. And I smoked pot for the first time that day. So it was quite a banner day in Monty.
Oh yeah, no kidding. Red Letter. Yeah, I saw AC/DC when I was in high school for the Razor's Edge tour. So
That was the same tour. Yeah. I
yeah,
saw him on Razor's Edge and then I saw him again for the next album that I'd never bought. So I don't remember the name of it.
and
Ball
I
Brave. Maybe.
wouldn't get too upset. My first concert, I went with my parents too, so it was for Huey Lewis and the News. So
Hey, nice. That
yeah,
Huey Lewis is a bit cooler than Lee Greenwood, at least.
that's the same genre.
Yeah, but I agree. I mean, at least Huey Lewis was on the Back to the Future soundtrack.
Yeah, I do. I'm not a Huey Lewis fan now, but I was editing some photos of I guess a Doc Brown figure it must have been. I think that's the only Back to the Future toy I have. And I did put on Power of Love on a loop for about 10 minutes or 15 minutes while I was editing some photos. But that's Back to the Future nostalgia talking.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fun fact, I didn't meet so that concert was December 12th, 1990. I don't usually have recall for dates like that, but I kept the ticket stub out for a long time. I met my wife in late 96. We got together in 97. We were both at that AC/DC concert. It's one of three concerts we figured out we were both at, but we didn't know each other yet.
That's awesome.
That is
Yeah,
cool.
kind of fun. That, Danzig, and I think an Aussie concert or something.
Oh man, Danzig and Ozzy. Jeez,
I'm not
jealous.
I'm
Never
I haven't gone to concerts since before we had our kid, like 21. Like I'm over them. I don't. It was always partly an excuse to party, and I haven't done that in 30 years. And they've gotten way too pricey. When you see AC/DC for $20, and then people wanting to charge you $150 for a ticket, I'm like, "Are you playing in my yard? Fuck yourself." So I'm over concerts, but I did get to see some pretty big legends. The ones I'm most grateful I got to see because now you can't. Ramones and Motorhead.
Oh,
Very grateful to not together, but I'm glad I got to see those two.
yeah. No, I would have loved to have seen Motorhead for sure.
They only played for like 45 minutes because it was I mean, I wouldn't call it a festival, but it was five bands. Weird lineup. It was Dangerous Toys, Metal Church, Motorhead, Alice Cooper, and Judas Priest. Kind of a weird show.
We saw him at Alice Cooper twice last year.
Nice. He's still going strong, man.
Yeah.
Like I saw him in '91, and we would have said he was old then, and 30 years later, he's
still
back.
touring.
Yeah, he's touring. He's going out again this year with.
Yeah, he does.
Okay, I don't
He
remember.
looks great. Looks like he's living his best
I
life.
didn't realize he was
Yeah.
still touring.
Yeah,
Okay.
I saw him. He came to Colorado Springs just on his own, and then I saw him with Rob Zombie.
Nice, right on. I saw White Zombie open for Danzig, but at the time, none of us had heard of White Zombie. They hadn't broke big yet. Um, Fun coincidence. My best friends growing up, two of my best friends anyway, Kit and Devin, their mom, her name is Alice, and she was an Alice Cooper fan. And I owned the original McFarlane Alice Cooper toy. He recently did another one that's not as cool. And that was before I was a photographer. I just had toys on a shelf, like most nerds. And I gifted him to her because she was an Alice Cooper fan. And then 5 or 10 years ago, I was like, "Hey, could I borrow that and just take some photos of it now that I'm a photographer?" So I kept it for a week, sent it back to her. Recently, I was posting on Facebook like, "Oh, hey, man, I thought of a cool idea for an Alice Cooper figure. Gosh, I should have kept that." Not thinking that she would see the post. She's like, "Hey, let me send it to you." So coincidentally, this arrived today in my.
Nice.
Oh, nice.
Sweet.
Yeah, back when McFarlane's sculptures were just top notch. The articulation was minimal, but for
Yep.
photography purposes, I don't care if the sculpt looks that
Yeah,
good.
Yes. Soda or pop?
Soda. I mean, like I don't drink either one now. But yeah, having grown up in California, actually, to be fair, when we were kids, my friend Kit and I still talk about this. We didn't have a generic word for it. I'm like people did, but he and I at least didn't. Like my favorite was Pepsi. So I'd be like, "Hey, can you bring me back a Pepsi?" And they'd bring me, "What the hell's this? I wanted a Mountain Dew," because like I was using the generic word in my mind.
Gotcha.
Yeah. After once I did develop it, for me, it was very much soda. I was never a huge Walking Dead fan, but probably my favorite moment in that show is Daryl is about to go do a grocery run for everybody, and he's looking at everyone's list. And he furrows his brow. He goes, "What the hell's pop?" I felt very seen. I never thought I would relate to Daryl so much.
All right, that's pretty funny. I'm not gonna mess with Daryl Dixon. All right,
Right.
valid.
What is the most used app on your phone?
This is embarrassing, but probably just Facebook. I have almost no apps on my phone. I have a few more inside my utilities window, but that's my home screen. There's like nothing on it. But I'm on Facebook a shameful amount of the time. That or Spotify or podcasts. Those are really the only three I use, honestly. I'm pretty boring that way.
Fair enough.
That had to be my shortest answer.
What song plays when you walk on screen?
Oh. I always wanted, if I was going to be a pro wrestler, I wanted my theme to be A Small Victory by Faith No More, which
Okay.
is like kind of their version of a sports anthem. But I wouldn't say it necessarily defines me. In the last year, my favorite song became the title. The title's goofy, "Dorks." It's kind of misleading by underground rapper Aesop Rock, who's become my everything in the last year. But that specifically was kind of a therapeutic song for me about some frustration I had about work. So that wouldn't really be it either. Damn, that's a really good question. Um,
This is one of the ones he added to the list, and I'm like,
I like it. I always joke that I want Prince's "Sexy Motherfucker" played at my funeral, but I wouldn't really say that's my song.
I like that.
I would probably, and especially because it would drive my wife and daughter nuts because they hate Aesop Rock, I would probably want to put together like an auditory montage of just his greatest lyrics about being an introvert, because that man writes about being an introvert like no one I've ever known. Couple examples rather. Slow drive, side eye, stealthy. When can we expect you? Why would you expect me? Like he just has lyrics like that all throughout his catalog. Like, no, like I don't want to do that. I use a phony voice when I'm yelling nobody's home. I'm a liar, but I wouldn't say I'm wrong. So yeah, it would probably have to be something by Aesop Rock. That man really speaks to me.
Nice.
Describe the. Oh wait, no, hang on. Oh wait,
Oh, we're
you're
off.
next.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. What number am I thinking of?
4.
Nope.
You lying bastard.
There's actually a right answer to that.
Let's see. Describe the rest of your life in 5 words.
Getting old, getting tired, dead. I didn't mean for that to be morbid or depressing. I was just going
Oh no, I can relate. I can relate.
I'm tired of being tired.
For
Yeah.
real, man. I'm perpetually just
Fucking
naturally exhausted. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Aisle or window seat on the plane?
Window for sure.
Yeah. Amen.
We went on a couple cruises back when we could afford to because we were living overseas, and we paid. I'd have to ask my wife. She recalls financial stuff a lot better than me.
Yeah.
We paid a ridiculous upcharge to have like a balcony on a cruise ship. Totally worth it. Like, why go on a trip if you can't have a good view, right? That's how I
Yeah,
look at it.
absolutely.
yeah.
That said, I will. I've flown enough now. Like, especially if there's like a kid or something, like, hey, here, kid, take the windows. You know, obviously I would surrender it if somebody needed the experience more than me. But if I had my druthers, I definitely want to be able to look out that window.
Best action figure.
Like all time?
Yeah. It doesn't have to be one that you own. It can be anyone that you want.
Jesus Christ. Whew.
Like I said, deep, hard hitting questions here.
I'm not kidding.
No place to hide on this one.
It's funny. There's so many ways you could approach this. Like,
Yeah.
you go for what
makes it an
accomplished.
interesting question.
Like, I'd have to go with 1960s G.I. Joe, the one that created the action figure name. But that thing's held together with rubber bands and shit. So do I go for quality? Do I go for scope? So that I don't go fucking completely crazy, I'm gonna limit myself to just shit I can even see right now. All right. I'm gonna cop out and just answer the best thing in my collection because Jesus Christ, I can't do it. I will. Okay, here's a caveat or a compromise. If you put a gun to my head, and I would have said this even 3 years ago at the nadir of my fandom for this property when I totally moved away from it temporarily. If you told me what's the greatest toy line of all time, 100% G.I. Joe, a real American hero.
Agreed.
Yep.
But
Agreed.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I'm going to surrender to recency bias for a figure and go with Four Horsemen's Ganesha. The ornate detail on this thing
Seen
is
the pictures of that.
fucking ridiculous. There's so much sculpted detail. So beautiful.
What do
Yeah.
the feet look like? I'm just.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Even the feet have ornate bullshit all over them. It's fucking ridiculous.
That's
So,
awesome.
Yeah, they do a fantastic job.
and for my money, the best line right now is Monster Force. Just again, the quality, the sculpts. I love like they're paying
World
tribute to
building.
stuff, but it's not lazy fan service. It's deep cut, like you said. They're tying into like the Action Force stuff, and like most American Joe fans, none of that stuff was on my radar at all till what 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
That mainly speaks to me. Red Shadows compels me so much more than Cobra, and nothing in my collection represents that fact. But
Same.
I love that that's their weird fan service swerve,
Yeah.
and just all the design elements. I'm so in love with it. So that would be my favorite line right now. G.I. Joe, real American hero all time, and arbitrarily I'll choose Ganesha as a representation of high quality ornate sculpts that I like these days.
Absolutely.
Well,
Oh no, I think it's
yeah.
yeah, it's mine.
Yeah.
So this is one that may or may not be able to answer. Favorite custom that you've done?
Oh, damn. Weirdly, it would be easier for me to answer like my favorite photo, and even though I've done so many more of those.
Sure. No, that works too. Let's do that.
Well, but that's weird because then I'm just describing a photo that like nobody could see. Although I guess that would be the case with a custom too.
Yep.
My favorite photo of all time. There's a creek nearby. It's almost never much to speak of. For like the heaviest rain month of the year, it gets going pretty good. Usually, it dries up to some stagnant puddles. And one year, it had these really neat little blossoms that looked sort of like miniature lily pads or something. And I brought Leonardo from the 1990 movie, the NECA figure, the Henson verse, as I call it. I brought that Leonardo out, and I think I had him wearing some kind of like cloak to kind of evoke the kind of like wandering spirit of the jungle take they did on him in that 2007 CGI movie. And I took the I don't know where he is, the fawn from Del Toro's Pan's Labyrinth, and I submerged him in the water and like pulled him up, so he's like sitting up out of the water with all these lily pads around him, like reaching up for Leonardo, who's like standing knee deep in the water and looking down at him. And it's one of those things. It's nothing I did differently. It just all came together, and I was like, "Damn! I think this will probably always be my favorite photo I've ever captured." And yeah, that's going to be easier than favorite kit bash because I've done hundreds of customs, and honestly, most of them are just like head swaps, and I love them. Like I couldn't really come up with a hierarchy of which ones are objectively any good. And you cited like kit bashing can be so hard because like to pull it off right. I don't even hold myself to the obligation of pulling it off right. My friend Jared, who got me into Monster Force, he also got me recently obsessed with Scooby-Doo of all things. Long story. He did some kit bashes and it inspired me to do some. Like, so this is my Velma. Looks nothing like Velma, but for me, it's like a modern real world take. I'm totally content with it. So
absolutely.
it's hard for me to evaluate mine because I'm so lackadaisical about it. Like, yeah, works for me. You know what I mean? Like it's all just for my amusement. So I'll go with my favorite photo instead.
That works. I like that.
One geek grail. If money is no object, what is one really nerdy, geeky thing that you'd love to own, or
maybe you already do?
Yeah, but or something that you've already acquired. But
I feel like for most people, their grail is like constant. Like it's always the USS flag, and I've never gotten it or whatever. I wouldn't know what the hell to do with a flag, even though I admire the
I had one when I was a kid, and
I got one when I was
nice
money from contracting.
My spoiled friend Pop Tart had it when he was a kid. Like he could lay down on the fucking thing. I admire the hubris of it, but like, what would I do with it now? So my grail changes. Like I've got a different grail every year or every few months, just like whatever toys a little bit out of my range or I just can't prioritize. Yeah. Most recently, it wasn't even super pricey. But I already got to photograph my friends, so I couldn't prioritize it. And my friend just went to a Mythic Legion show and bought it for me. The Four Horsemen, who did Ganesha here, as one of his accessories goes flying.
They do really good work.
Yeah.
They do some crazy shit. But they did for one of their Cosmic Legions figures. We all make fun of like the names for their characters because they do that fantasy thing where they throw apostrophes into the names. And so like I don't know what his name really is, but we put like an apostrophe every other letter when we're spelling it up. But his name is literally Fisher Rice in tribute to Fisher Price because they did a Cosmic Legions figure that it's a tribute to the little 1970s. Were they called little people or no
Uh,
adventure people?
Adventure People.
Adventure people,
So
yeah.
the blue-faced alien with the white hair, they
Yes.
did one like a badass modern update of that. And I'd seen photos. I'm like, oh, that's kind of cute. That's cool. My friend Scott brought it on a shoot, and we were like almost done with the shoot. He brings so much stuff, and I just like grabbed his tote, pulled it over. I'm like, oh my god, what's this? It just sometimes something speaks to you,
Yeah.
and I was
Oh yeah.
photographing it, and
Oh
it
yeah.
was so idiot-proof, photogenic, and I'm like, oh my god, I need this. And then I finally resolved, I don't need it. I'm going to go on a shoot once or twice a year with Scott. I'll ask him to bring it every time. It'll be fine. And he went to this show Saturday, a Mythic Legions kind of convention gathering. I was going to go with him, but I didn't want to do a 4-hour round trip drive. So he's like, "Is there anything you're looking for?" I'm like, "Nah, I guess Fisher Rice if you see one." And he found one for $60. I'm like, "Yes, please." So that was my most recent grail. I guess now, and actually, it's something JD is considering maybe someday trading to me. The classified vamp sold out before I got into classified. I only really got heavily into classified about 5 months ago. I love Clutch, even though as a kid he wasn't really on my radar. I didn't really know him. He's the complete opposite of me politically, socially, and I just if I met him in real life, I would find him the most horrible bore and just so accosting. And for some reason, he's just the funniest fucking thing in the world. I love to write dialogue for him for my photos. He's just I find him delightful, and I can't explain why. So I kit bashed my own clutch that I'm totally happy with, but I really want that damn vamp. So I guess the classified vamp right now would probably be my grail. I might settle for the Stinger. It's reduced to $80 right now, I think, on Amazon, and that's kind of hard to pass up.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely the vamp. I love that thing.
Who's your favorite comic book artist?
Artist. I'm going to give you, I have other answers, but I'm going to first give you my basic bitch answer, which is Alex Ross.
Okay.
People
That's a
say
good
he
solid answer.
uses the same model for too many characters. His work is too
He's
stilted, it's
got really
constipated.
pretty. His work is great.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I love photo realism.
I do understand the criticisms, but it's like Norman Rockwell painting Superman. Like, how can you go wrong with that? I still
Agreed.
see his covers sometimes, and it's like, Jesus Christ, how do you do that? Just the
Yeah.
lighting alone. Um, on the opposite end of the style scale, I like Dave McKean a lot. He did really trippy stuff with like the Sandman covers. I'm pretty out of touch with comic books these days.
Oh my.
But
Doesn't
yeah,
yeah, it doesn't have to be
those
curated.
two are kind of quite a spectrum that represents the things I like.
Excellent. I like those. Those are good choices for sure.
Your favorite music soundtrack? Not musical, just music soundtrack. Although it
So,
could be a musical, I suppose.
so like music from a film,
Yeah.
yeah, kind of a weird one, but I go back to it over and over again. I got really into it when I was when my photography muse was NECA's Lone Ranger and Tonto figures. Um, I like that movie well enough, even though it's a hot mess. But my love for the figures turned into something completely different. For like 2 years, that's almost all I photographed. About so many things to combine with them. I had so many stories in my head that when I finally 3 years later watched the movie, this is gonna sound narcissistic, but I didn't mean it that way. But it literally felt like whoa, they adapted this because the figures had the characters, those designs, especially Tonto with that eerie face paint, they had become so mine in my head, and I crafted so
Sure.
many stories that it felt like they had adapted, like made a movie of my head canon. It was so weird, but I love that soundtrack actually. Now that I think about it, that Lone Ranger soundtrack from Hans Zimmer, he took the William Tell overture and turned it into this like 15-minute epic that's just beautiful. But what I mostly would listen to when I was editing my Lone Ranger and Tonto photos was an instrumental soundtrack from Nick Cave, who I love. The last concert I saw 20 something years ago was Nick Cave in the Bad Seeds, but he does a lot of solo soundtrack work with the violinist Warren Ellis, not to be confused with the comic book writer. And they did a soundtrack to The Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford.
Okay.
And it's beautiful and melancholy and Old West and eerie, and God, I love it. It's some of my favorite music in the world. Very melancholy though. When we first went to Africa, we forgot to bring our white noise machine that we need to sleep. So
Yeah.
like, let's just put on music. And I put that on thinking it's kind of slow and quiet. And my daughter was 5. She's like, Mama, I can't take it. It's too sad. It is very melancholy, but God, it's beautiful.
Nice. Last question.
Uh-oh.
Who is your favorite superhero?
I'm going to give a couple answers because historically, all time, I have to go with the Incredible Hulk. I was 3 years old when I discovered Bill Bixby's Incredible Hulk. It scared the shit out of me. I had nightmares every week, but I had to watch it every week. And back then, when a show went off the air, it was just done. So when they did the Return of the Incredible Hulk movie in 1988-ish, it's not very good. I hope you're sitting down. But I was like in fifth grade. I was just cool, put it in my veins. But it started with the opening sequence from the old show. And it was my first experience of nostalgia. I had last seen the show when I was maybe 5. I was now in fifth grade. I was alone. My parents were out that night for whatever reason. I was watching it on TV. And I would not have been able to articulate it then. But watching that opening credit sequence, it did something to me. I'm like, whoa, like this was formative for me. And that show obviously on most levels does not hold up objectively. But I've watched some of the better episodes done by the showrunner, whose name I'm forgetting, but he created the show V as well.
Okay.
He did some of the two-parters, and basically, if you remember any episodes of that show and think that one was actually a good episode, he's the guy that did it. Kenneth Johnson, that's who his name is.
Okay.
He did the pilot. He did the one with the first Hulk, which freaked me out when I was a kid, and a couple other ones. But even now, if I watch that show, there's something, I'm going to use the word melancholy again, something about Bill Bixby's acting that I just imprinted on as a kid. That it's a cheap TV show in the late 70s and early 80s and all that implies. But I maintain there's a kernel of real magic in there. So the Hulk will always be it. But in terms of like what I want a hero to be, I am an earnest, corny Superman fan. Mark Waid, he said something that's always struck with me. He said, gods derive their power from persuading us to believe in them. Superman gets his power from believing in us. And I just think that's magical. I don't want my Superman edgy. I don't mind if he gets a bit angry, gets a bit tough once in a while, but he should be what we aspire to. He should be the light. To turn him into Batman is to completely miss the point. So yeah, Hulk and Superman. And then for newer ones, Promethea, Alan Moore's Promethea. She's basically the goddess of stories. If you haven't read it, it's like a 20-issue run. Funny as hell, innovative as hell, super creative, super funny. And I mean, the goddess of stories. I wanted to name our daughter Promethea, but cooler heads prevailed. I wasn't able to do it. So that's my trifecta.
That's familiar.
What did you want to name your kid?
I tried to make a deal with my with my son Blake's mother that she could pick the middle name if I could name if his no, she could pick the first name if his middle name could be Coulson.
That's not too big of an ask.
Yeah, but she was like, no, we're both picking the first name and stop it. And then, well, it's funny because shortly after Blake was born, it was ABC made the announcement that they were starting an Agents of Shield television show,
and bringing Coulson back, right?
Yeah, because right away, I don't think he was mentioned. Like the first announcement was just an Agents of Shield show was coming. And then very shortly after that, there was like they listed the cast, and Clark Gregg was just on it, and all of a sudden the news exploded. Either so that the fan theories came out. Oh, Nick Fury faked his death or whatever, or anybody who ever watched the show knows that Coulson was actually dead, but there was all kinds of crazy measures they went to bring him.
I never did see it actually.
But at the time, when I had that suggestion, Coulson had been my favorite MCU character, and eventually they brought him into the comics too, but he didn't exist there. He was from when Clark Gregg auditioned to play him, he was just Agent. And then when he almost turned it down because he said to his wife, you know what, it's just a few lines, I'm gonna end up on the cutting room floor anyways. And Jennifer Grey, his wife at the time, said, no, you have to do this. You grew up with comic books, you love superhero movies, you need to do this. Well, it turns out, but when he was off in after 5 movies of building him up and a couple little short vignette stories from Marvel, then they killed him off. Well, it's Joss Whedon. These things happen. But it still hurt. Like I cried in the theater. I'm like, oh my God, when he's like Agent Coulson is down. But I loved his last line when he shoots Loki with the destroyer gun. He's like, oh, that's what it does. Um, but yeah, I wanted my son's middle name to
I
be,
need to rewind.
but
And I don't have kids, but my wife said if we did, we'd have named him Paul from Paul Atreides from Dune.
Nice. See, that's a good one because it doesn't jump out at you as sounding like some super like my friend named his kid Kirk. I'm like, yeah, I love Kirk too, but I'm not going to saddle my kid with that. But that name sounds neutral, so that's not a bad choice. And I would argue Coulson does too. I love the MCU obviously, but the early years I was only seeing each movie once. We would have been overseas. I was lucky if I could catch them at all, so
Yeah.
I wasn't retaining all the continuity. So I didn't remember the character. So my friend and I were talking about the Avengers the first time I watched it. We watched it at a theater in Pakistan, which was delightful. People were giving standing ovations to some of the jokes and stuff. But I was like, "What the hell is Whedon trying to pull? He treated that agent's death like it was a big deal." And he's like, "What do you mean?" I'm like he's just some dude, some agent in the movie. He's like, dude, he's been in like every movie in the MCU. I'm like, oh, for real? I didn't know. I had remembered like none of it. So it's kind of weird. Like I've gotten so emotionally vested at times in the MCU, but like that most pivotal part for you totally went over my head because I hadn't seen the stuff enough to retain any of it. What are you gonna
all
do?
right, that's pretty funny. I mean, as it turns out, his first name is Blake. We actually both picked that. But his middle name is Logan, which technically, yeah,
Partial credit.
I mean, it wasn't the intention, but all right. So,
Partial credit at least.
yeah. So I still wish his middle name was Colson. But it once they announced he was coming back, I'm like, okay, all right. The tribute was not actually needed, but
Fair enough. Fair
Yeah.
enough.
Seeing the movie in Pakistan, I get that. I saw Iron Man for the first time bootlegged when I was in Afghanistan. So
Nice. That's
yep.
awesome. Well, I mean, we have our own caste system in the States, obviously, and we just don't call it as such. But it was very much in effect there. We had a driver that the school hired for us to take us everywhere. And we invited him in to eat with us one night, and he insisted on sitting on the floor, like it was that overt. Um, so it was like the moment that I remember most in that theater was when Loki's trying to be all haughty, and Hulk grabs him and just smashes him. Obviously, rousing and funny for everybody. Literally, people gave that a standing ovation, and my wife afterward was like, that fucking spoke to these people." I was like, makes sense. It's good stuff.
All right. I think that's about all we got for this
yeah.
particular episode.
Monty, thanks for coming on the show.
Absolutely.
Thank you guys. This was really fun.
Glad
Yeah,
you enjoyed it.
we
I really did. I had a great time. We went really fast. You guys, I got time for the questions. I'm like, what? We're already there? Went really fast.
well, I'd love to have you back on the show at some point.
Absolutely.
I'd love that too.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, and I just want to thank all 16 of you out there. I don't know how many of you are actually out there, but I appreciate all of you for listening.
Well, you know me, JD. I deleted Instagram because I could never get into using my phone, and so like I post my toy photos. Like I used like my Flickr had like 1 million views or something at one point. Like I get like 10 or 15 reactions on my photos on Facebook. Yeah, that's fine. It's my friends and family. I don't care. Like I'm doing it for me. What do I care? So now I have a whole new audience of 15 new people that might come look at my photos.
Absolutely. Send JD links to your social media and I'll put them in the show notes. And then
honestly, all I have is my Flickr that I haven't updated in like 8 years or something.
That's all right. I'll link to your Facebook too.
Yeah.
So.
All right. We'll figure something out.
Yep.
All right.
All right. It was fun,
All
gentlemen.
right.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you. And
likewise,
as always, everybody, thanks for watching. And do that fun social media stuff, like, share, subscribe, and comment below.